Welcome back to the Connect Church Discipleship Podcast. We're in Season 5, Episode 10. This is our Capstone episode. This season, we've been talking about our emotions and relationships and what it looks like to have spiritual formation in those areas. And Frank and Angela are back to kind of help us wrap up. So thanks for being here for all these episodes.
Of course, it's been a blast.
Yeah, we always record these back to back to back, so it kind of...
Sorry, I should have brought a shirt to change, but
That's
I didn't.
That's it. But here we are, so we appreciate that. But this season, we started with the idea of loving the Lord our God with our heart, our soul, our mind, and our strength. And we said that's going to include our emotions. It's going to include our relationships. And so hopefully we're paying a little more attention to those areas as a result of this and seeing how God could disciple us. And I think of it from this lens. We have a great opportunity in front of us because culture usually doesn't do emotions and relationships well. Sadly, as the church, we don't do it too great either, but we have an opportunity to model something different. And like, what would it look like if as followers of Jesus, we actually showed some health in this area? We talk about how the way of Jesus brings life. Well, it should touch these areas. And so what we do here matters. So just a couple questions just to maybe wrap up this season for us. Who is someone in your guys' lives that you've seen model health in emotions and in relationships?
All right. This is actually kind of a fun thing to think about. So for me, our family has a potluck once a month, and it's been really fun to see a lot of my cousins, my siblings become parents. There is, on a side tangent, there's less kids, which means less cousins, and cousins are really important. It helps you see your family through other people's eyes, and so we all shared grandparents, and I think we now see how much our parents took steps in seeking to do things differently from their parents. And I think now the lessons that we all learned, I see my cousins, my siblings continue to take that further as they pursue health in emotions and relationships with their children and with their parents. So yeah, that's been kind of a cool place to see it play out.
Sure.
Yeah, I had trouble answering this. I mean, there's a couple people I know who and I don't want to say their names, but I feel like I've seen them work through some really difficult things with counseling and therapy and things like that, which has been good. But it was hard for me to think of someone. So I'm like, I guess that's why it's good we're talking about this in the church lens. But like, sure. Yeah, I just think too many times in church we bury this stuff. I don't know that we deal with it. I think for me, I always viewed it almost as like weakness to show it and to deal with it. And so I think I've had to unlearn that a little bit. I feel like that's been a lot of the story of people that like I've served alongside of in ministry.
Yeah. So I'm going to combine our next two questions here, right? What the people that you have seen it do it well to any extent, what impact has that made in your life? And then maybe what are some lessons or things that they do that you're like, oh, that's a key thing to maybe take away a little bit?
Well, for me, I think there was just a pastor I really looked up to, and he made a big mistake and lost ministry and all that. But recently he's just been talking about that experience. And I think it's just been helpful for me to see, I guess, someone in my shoes in a sense of doing pastoral ministry had all of the things that like I hope to get, but like didn't deal with this stuff, which again is the story I saw. And now he is. And like his whole thing is he wished somebody had told him sooner than to the point where it blew up. But I think just to hear that journey has been really helpful for me. And I think he's just put words to a lot of the things that I've felt internally and wrestle with. And yeah, it's been a huge impact for me to see somebody, I think, be vulnerable about the journey. And I think just the life of almost like a pastor sometimes where you play this weird line of being okay versus not being okay and all of those things. And so I think the key lesson is like get help when you need it. Yeah. People with traumatic childhoods, like therapy and counseling are good things. They're not bad. Doesn't mean you don't have faith. It means I think you have more faith because you're trying to live in the fullness of life that Jesus promises. And sometimes that takes work. It's not easy, but it's worth it.
It's good.
And I don't know, for me, I just think we now live in a time where we have a lot more resources about this. And I think it can be tempting to look down on previous generations, but I think it's really important to remember that they were doing the best they could with what they had, and that we shouldn't be arrogant in how we handle that or relate to other generations just because we have more resources. That's not okay either. And I think that is a temptation because we're like, oh, we have all the things, we can fix all the things. And it's like, no, especially because a lot of times we're trying to do a lot of this in our own strength. And it's like, one, without Jesus, we can't do any of this. And two, like, let's be kind about it. Just because we have the resources doesn't give us a carte blanche to just be mean about it.
Yeah.
And I think that definitely is a temptation there of like, well, look at us, we're doing this so well, you did this so poorly. That's not going to help. That's not going to get us anywhere.
True. Okay, so let's flip the question or change our direction here for the last few minutes. You're both excellent disciplers of children and teens. So as we think about the idea of healthy emotions and healthy relationships, and as a church, we want to be next generation focused, right? This is one of our values, is to equip the next generation. What are some keys that maybe we could practice to help that generation have healthy emotions and healthy relationships?
I mean, I would just say watch Inside Out 1 and Inside Out 2. And no, I'm kidding. They're great movies, so. Honestly, a lot of it is just like simple stuff, right? Sleep 8 hours a night. Like, you need to do that. Put your phone down. You don't need to stay up to 3 a.m. Stop using your phone to compare yourself to other people. You are who God made you to be, and like live in that. It doesn't matter what other people have, and if they have more or less, right? You're where you're supposed to be. And all of these things that often just make us anxious and depressed, like your brain is literally not developed enough yet to handle all of this stuff. So like put guardrails up. If your parents won't do it, you do it. Be smart about what you let into your life. Have good friendships, hang out in person, laugh together, do things together, build memories with people, put your phone down, be present. And to young people, like, that's not judgmental, right? You are where you are because my generation has been really bad at that, and we've modeled that for you. And so we do all of these things, and you've learned them from us. And so, like, I'll own that. This isn't a derogatory thing towards you, but like, my generation is living with the consequences of that. And there's more than that for you. And so, yeah, healthy friendships matter. And just be present. And then I would just say, too, of like, all this awareness about mental health stuff is good, but we've almost swung back the other way where it's like hyper, like, sometimes life is hard. And like, again, process it with people, but like, sometimes you do just need to like get up and keep going on, and it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. Yeah. Not everything is a stage 12 like emergency, and so learn discernment. And I would say trust that God would like speak to the things that like really are deep and necessary to work through, and then the things that are just life, and kind of just be resilient and move on.
I think from the side of it, of like the church coming alongside of it, this generation does need space for processing. For a very long time, church was you went, you sat, you got talked at, and then you left. And it's different for these kids. They really need a landing space. They want to talk about it. They want to think through it. They want to process it. And ideally, if again, we say we want to equip the next generation, for us as a church, ideally this is a space where they have older people around that can keep pointing them to Jesus. Because they're kids. They're going to say things that you think are crazy because that's what they're hearing from their friends, and they're still learning. They're not going to have the theology perfect, but if we partner with them in this, then we can point them to Jesus. It's really easy to sell these kids short, but they're going to be up for a lot more than we give them credit for. But it's us partnering with them. Lecturing is not going to work, but we can keep showing up for them so that when they mess up, they know that there are people in their lives that care about them. And I think that partnership will also be important.
Yeah, no, I love that. Again, there's opportunity ahead of us here, right? Like, we don't have to sit on the sidelines. We don't have to say, we might not be able to understand everything the way the next generation, but we can be there. We can show up.
Yeah, because we're not going to be their friends. Like, we're just not. We're too old. We're too not cool. But we can still be people in their lives that can support them and point them to Jesus.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us this season. Appreciate it, your wisdom that you've shared with us and helped us. So I'm going to throw a get to know you here real quick. I didn't prep you ahead of time on this because I forgot to. So what's a skill that you're proud of? Got him.
Got 'em.
This is where my self self-deprecating personality. I'm like nothing. Skill I'm proud of. So, all right. So in the context of all this stuff, I do think I've gotten fairly good at being just self-aware of my emotions and those things. Now I still need to work on like the practical application. Like sometimes I'm aware and I just choose to stay aware but do nothing.
Sure.
But I do think I've done a decent amount of like just work to learn the skill of like just seeing beneath the surface a little bit of what's going on.
Okay.
That's good. That's really helpful. I'm just saying because I still don't have one. I mean, I feel like we had this as a small group question recently, and I will say one of my random skills is that I work with bugs, but I'm really good at seeing bugs in weird places and appreciating them and bringing that joy to everyone.
There was a huge cricket jumping around during one of
So you noticed it right here a few
and
minutes ago.
she knew what it was instantly.
It's a weird skill,
Yeah.
but yours is probably more useful.
That's it. They're both important skills that we need. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Now is the time to go meet with your discipler, spend some time, process a little bit on healthy relationships, and we'll see you in the future. Take care.